Okay, I think we're recording. Yes, we're recording. Okay, so guys, I'm not going to be there today, but we're going to go ahead and have our lesson. So I also do not have my journal, so I'm going to write on top of the tabs, but you are going to flip the tab and write underneath the tab, okay? At the end of this video, you are going to have to take a picture of your work, of your notes, to show me, because I'll be viewing them from home, to show me that you did your job today when it comes to the lesson. All right, so let's get started and we'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. Rounding is one of the most difficult things that we can do. So anytime they ask you for rounding, something rounding, you need to highlight what it is they're wanting you to round and the place. So this is the nearest 10,000ths, and yesterday we did this. I'm just going to have to redo it, okay? Now, the highlighted digit is the only digit that goes up, unless it's a 9, which we'll talk about later. So right now, I see that there's a 6 there. The number behind it determines what happens to that 6. If the number behind it is 5 or more, that 6 gets to change to a 7. That's called raising the score. If the number behind it is 4 or less, we're going to let it rest at 6. It gets to stay a 6. It doesn't change. Okay. Now, it is not enough to just write the rounded number of the 6. You have to write what's in front of the 6 too. It's an important part of that number. So 3 is in front of the 6. So we write that first. Now let's look at the 6. The number behind the 6 is a 7, which is more than 5. So 6 is now a 7 because it was the digit behind it is more than 5, so it raises its score from a 6 to a 7. Everything else, every single piece behind that one, behind the highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4, need to be turned into zeros. So this is what you need to write underneath this tab. Moving on to the next one, we're going to round to the nearest 100,000ths, which is this digit here. Not that one. This one, right here. Yes. All right, so we're going to draw a line, an arrow, because this number right here decides whether or not 8 changes to a 9 or if it stays an 8. There's nothing in front of the 8, so we don't have to worry about that. So looking at the 8, the 2 behind it is less than 5. 5 or more, raise the score to a 9. 4 or less, let it rest at an 8. Well, it's less than 4, so we're going to let this rest at an 8. Everything else behind it turns into a 0. And I'm using a mouse to write, so my numbers aren't very fluid. Now this is what you should write underneath the second tab. All right, next tab. Let's do a different color. We're going to round to the nearest 1,000, which is right here. Oh, my good gravy. There we go. The digit behind it is a 7. That's going to determine whether 6 gets to stay a 6 or it's going to jump up to a 7. Everything in front of the highlighted digit stays the same, so I have to write a 7 and a 9. Ooh, that's horrible. All right, now let's look at the 6. Is the number behind a 6 5 or more, or 4 or less? It's 5 or more. So if it's 5 or more, 6 is going to up the score to a 7. Okay? And then everything else behind it, 1, 2, 3, turns into zeros. So this is the answer you should write underneath that third flap. Next one, round to the nearest 100,000, which is right there. The digit that determines what happens is the 3. There's not any number in front of the 9, so there's nothing we need to worry about. So now it's time to talk about changing the 9 or leaving it alone. Based on the number behind the 9, it's a 3. Is that more than 5? No. That's less than 4 or less. So since it's 4 or less, 9 gets to let it rest. So 9 will rest, that digit will rest at 9. Everything else behind it, boop, 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 turn to zeros. Ta-da! And one more and you're done. The nearest 10,000, which is right here. Let's change this color. Let's do pink. All right. The 3 is what makes this 4 change its mind or stay by itself. Everything in front of the highlighted place, which is the 10,000th place, stays the same. So since there's a 2 in front of the 4, we have to put that 2 there. Now let's talk about that 4. The digit behind determines whether or not it raises the score or we let it rest. So we're looking at the 3. The 3 is the decision maker here. The 3 decides whether or not 4 stays a 4 or gets to go up to be a 5. So since the 3 is less than 4, then 4 has to let it rest. Means it stays what it is. The 4 will rest at 4. And everything else behind it, boop, 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 turn into zeros. And ta-da, you are done. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to open up all 5 flaps so I can see your notes on your notebook. You're going to press the addition symbol on this activity. You're going to take a picture and you're going to add it to this activity. This shows me that you did your lesson today. Once you have done that, you may go into your playlist time. Again, we are not doing PRBLs today, but I will say this, today is a great time for you to get caught up on some things so that you don't miss Fun Friday. Some of you are missing quite a bit of work from me, and turning it in is fine, but if you don't turn it in, you'll miss Fun Friday. If you rush through it and you turn it in and it's not complete or it's not done to your best ability, you'll miss Fun Friday and you'll redo it. So make good choices today. You know who you should and should not be sitting with. So use your time wisely. Hopefully you'll get caught up today, and I will see you guys tomorrow.